In episode 18, we speak about winning the game of life. Part 4, standards and priorities. Okay, I call that I done with my clients. We do this every single week, but we dig into it on this podcast, everything to do with standards and priorities. After this podcast, you should be in a position of power to align your priorities with your goals, align your goals with your priorities, raise the standards, and truly start becoming the best version of yourself.
It's time to wake the fuck up.
So, today's podcast is going to be a little interactive one. This is a weekly call that I done with my clients last night, and the topic is standards and priorities. Okay, the overall theme of these calls at the moment is win the game of life. So this is part 4. We're going to dig into it. Jack, tell the audience what your role of this podcast is going to be.
So I'm going to be the viewer. I'm going to be the guy I'm going to basically be you guys. So I'm going to try and think of questions I can ask that'll help you understand more of what Kyle's saying. Let's fucking get it.
Let's go. So a few questions, right? So standards and priorities. First statement that I'm going to make is the gap between you now and the best version of yourself, right? The two main things that separate you and that person are your standards and your priorities. Okay, so here's a few questions for standards. Are you setting them high right now? Does your behavior show this? So if you looked at your behavior, does that show that that is someone with high standards? And do your results show this? So do the results that you're getting in life right now, do they show that you have high standards? A couple of questions to get started. Priorities. Okay, do your priorities serve you right now? So does your priority list serve you? Does it put you in a better position now? Does it put future you in a better position? Do they align with the goals that you've got? So do your priorities align with the goals that you've got set out? And would the best version of yourself have the same priorities? So if you think about the ideal version of yourself, which we'll speak about in a minute, would that person have the same priorities as you have now? Okay, if they doesn't, that's when we can start to outline what priorities we need to set to become that best version of ourselves. So, standards reflect self-worth. The standards you set for yourself directly correlate with how much you value yourself. Higher standards often lead to better choices, habits, and outcomes. Okay, so if you're someone with higher standards, generally you're going to have habits that put you in a better position, habits that actually serve you, habits that would in any way kind of make you better. Okay, if a bad habit, for example, having a wank, smoking too much weed, sniffing too much gear, drinking too much alcohol at the weekend, those habits are someone with low standards. Okay, someone with high standards might be into the habit of eating healthy foods, going to the gym regularly, going out in nature at the weekend for walks, interacting with the people that they love, being present, being off their phone. These are the kind of habits that someone with higher standards might have. Your priorities, so if your standards reflect your self-worth, your priorities will define your focus. What you prioritize dictates where you invest your time, energy, and resources. Misaligned priorities can lead to distractions and inefficiency, while clear, aligned priorities help you progress towards becoming the best version of yourself. So Jack, if you want to list a few priorities that would be aligned and allow you to progress towards becoming the best version of yourself, what kind of priorities would someone have?
Well, obviously as the viewer, what priorities should I have?
So the best version of yourself, if you think about that person, right? How do they live? What is their physique? Like, what is their daily habits? Like, what do they do? That's going to probably outline what you're going to be prioritizing in your life.
Yeah, probably speaking from the context of a viewer that wants to improve all aspects of their life and probably values and prioritizes their health, or wants to anyway. A few priorities would be, making sure that your health is at the top of that, making sure that health can be split up into a few different things, physical, mental health.
Well, if your health 100% is one of your top priorities, what are you going to do? Have a good diet, have good sleep, have a good routine, right? So if you've got a consistent good sleep, a consistent good diet, a consistent training program, a consistent routine, how do you think your business looks? How do you think your relationships look? How do you think overall your results look? Probably quite good. So yeah, 100%. If health is at the top of their priorities, it trickles onto everything else. And one of my clients actually asked me, Luke the legend, asked me, I love how you and Jack live. Like, how the fuck can I start living like you guys? And I said, to be honest, bro, it's our priorities. Like, we prioritize our health. So over business, I prioritize my health. Okay, so I'll prioritize the gym and diet over my business. Might not serve the business that well, but keeps everything else in check. It keeps my mental health in check. It keeps my standards high, by that being one of my main priorities.
Yeah, to add to that, because if I didn't have my health as a main priority, as a business owner, the tasks that you have to do for your business heavily outweigh the time you have in a fucking day. So all the tasks always carry on to the next day, which means you could just spend all fucking day just doing business work. But I've got priorities to gym, to stay healthy, to eat properly. So I will make sure I delegate time that day to go to the gym, to eat properly. And it will detriment my business work in the sense that I could have got more done that day, but my priorities lie with health as well. So I need to prioritize time for that also. And that's something I think a lot of viewers might not do. There'll be peaks and troughs. They'll be like, the stress of certain things will outweigh the responsibilities, if you know what I mean. So like, if you think you've got, I need to do all this, like for business, you're going to maybe prioritize that little hour that day to go to the gym. And if you've done that every day for the next week, see the state you're going to be in for the following week. It will not be in a good one. The momentum towards business will probably take a hit because you've not prioritized the other parts of your life, like your health. Like Kyle just said, it's like,
well, if you think
everything starts to tick over better when you prioritize everything that you want to prioritize, not just the thing that you think, I'll just do this. You see all these business owners with big fucking bellies, man. It's
that's what I was just about to say. If your health is your priority and your mental health comes along with your physical health, you're going to get a haircut regularly. You're going to have a clean shaven beard. You're going to be in good physical health. You're going to look good physically with your top off, right? If you look good with your top off, you look better, you're going to feel better, and you're going to perform better. So if your priority is running your business, if you look better, feel better, you're going to perform better, and that business will be doing better and making you more money. So prioritizing your health, 100%, something that is a good priority to have. Before we start, before we get into this deeply, list your top 3 to 5 priorities. List them, write them down. As I said, this is quite interactive, so this podcast can be used as an actual exercise for you to understand more where your priorities lie, where do they need to be, where are your standards, etc. Okay, you want to utilize this podcast for what it's meant for. List your top 3 to 5 priorities. Also, little question, if you were to look at yourself as someone else, so you take a third person perspective, would you perceive yourself as someone with high standards? If you see him in the gym, if you see him in a restaurant, would you look at yourself and perceive yourself as someone with high standards? Ask yourself that question. So, outlining the ideal version of you. A couple of questions to get you thinking. What are their priorities? The ideal version of yourself, the guy that doesn't miss, the guy that is exactly how you want to be. What are their priorities? Are they disciplined? Can they say no to short-term pleasure? Are they organised? Do they get shit done? Ask yourself a few of these questions. Pause it right now. Start to outline the ideal version of yourself, because if we can outline that version of yourself, I'll come back to it, but it's a very valuable thing to know, because then we can start to live accordingly with that person and eventually become that guy. Where do I start with priorities though? How would I, as a viewer, start to go, right, how the fuck do I set my priorities? Where are they? Perfect. That's what we're going on to. So again, it depends, because me and Jack spoke about this last night. So do you set your priorities first and then do you align your goals off the back of that? Or do you set your goals first and align your priorities off of that? How do you even initially set your priorities? What are they based off? So I just don't even know that. A lot of people might not. It depends. So that's the point I was making there. So priorities to what matters most to you. So like if you're for your values, then that's if you want to. So the wee success formula that we wrote down last night, and probably not pop up on the screen, right? But if we're trying to align or trying to find what our priorities are, what our goals are, align with those priorities, and our main focus is purpose and self, right? If it's for purpose and self, we're not talking about business, we're not talking about achievement. You're probably going to think about what matters most to you first, right? And that's going to give you a good idea of what your priorities are. So if it is health, if it is family, if it is freedom, if it you start to think about what matters most to you, right? Off the back of that, we then align the goals with the priorities, right? And the goals would obviously have to make sense with the priorities. If the goals make sense with the priorities, then off the back of that, we need to make the right decision to make sure that those goals, we're working towards those goals, aligned with those initial priorities. So that's how you'd work out your priorities, aligned with or trying to benefit yourself, right? And your purpose. We're going to dig into this because you're asking questions that we're going to actually cover. Yeah, but to find out your priorities though, you need to find out what you fucking value in life first. And then say you value your health, say you value fucking, do you know what I mean, purpose, all that kind of stuff. You then do you know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, like, that's what I'm saying, but it's like, if we're thinking about priorities, we can either think about what we doing to be successful to benefit ourselves, our purpose, our fulfillment, all that kind of stuff. We then think about what matters the most to us, which would then give us a list of what our priorities are. That's how you find your priorities in that sense. If you're trying to benefit or grow your business and achieve something, that's your purpose, or that's your priority, sorry. That's what you want to think about first. Then we would think about the goals that you've got, and then we would set the priorities aligned with the goals that you set. So if you're, for example, you want to scale your business as a coach, right? Say a coach wants to get more clients, more MRR, more monthly recurring revenue, right? You would then, with those goals, say you set your goal to make 10 grand a month, 10K MRR, your priorities would then align with those goals. And those priorities would then be, right, I'm going to prioritize outreach. I'm going to prioritize content. I'm going to prioritize maybe lead magnets, paid ads. That's what you would then prioritize, right? And then make the right decision off the back of that. That would then allow you to achieve those goals that you've set. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So, priorities. Okay, so priorities most of the time are generally relate to decision making, right? So whatever your priorities are will dictate what decision you make. What we've just spoke about, Jack asking that question, it'll be a little bit clearer in a second when we talk about it a little bit more. But your priorities will decide what decision you're going to make, okay? Here's how to know if you're making the right decision. The best way to know, ask yourself this simple question. Will future me thank me for doing this? Making this decision, will I look back and thank myself for making this decision? That is the best way to know if you're making the right decision. Agree?
Yeah. When it comes to making decisions for future you as well, though, it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because the disciplined decision is always the best one for future you. But I don't know, I feel like sometimes you need to make decisions based on the now and the present. So ones that give you that kind of instant gratification in the moment, depending on where it is.
100%. I mean, there's going to be decisions in life that you can't actually sit and think what is good for future me. You will need to just make that decision. 100%. That's a good point. That's actually a point I made last night in the call. I'm not saying every decision that you can make in life will have the ability for you to be conscious and ask yourself that question, but anytime you can, ask yourself if you're going to thank yourself in the future for that decision you make. If you will thank yourself and that's a decision you can consciously make, then it's going to be the right decision.
Because like say you've got goals in the gym to get leaner, and that's maybe a shitty example, but I'll use it anyway. And then eating a little bit of food that maybe takes you slightly off track because you're out for dinner or there's something going on. Future you won't thank you for it because the discipline is tailored towards getting leaner, whatever. But future you might thank you for it because it's allowed you to have a good time, create good memories with your family, friends, whatever the fuck. Shitty example, but you can see where
that's exactly a good example. 100%.
Because it's like good discipline is like where you want to carry yourself with, but there's times where you want to just give yourself that pleasure, and it could fall under the pain of regret, but it's not because of the context you're putting it in. You're actually giving yourself that pleasure because of all the discipline around that one decision that you've made. Giving yourself that pleasure sometimes. I was on holiday there for a week, Tenerife. I fucking tuned the business down and I tuned the pleasure up, and now I'm ready to come back and fucking smash it. And future me won't thank me for it in terms of business. Maybe killed a tiny little bit of momentum, but the momentum I'm going to then be able to build off the back of giving myself that recharge and that kind of instant gratification of just chilling for a week is then I'm going to thank myself for it. So,
well, yeah, even to what you said there, something that might appear that future you won't thank you for, in that context, future you will thank you for that.
Yeah.
So it's like, future you will thank you for going on holiday. So it doesn't matter if like the act of going on holiday, future you generally wouldn't thank you for it if you want to be disciplined.
But I could fuck
in
my
your
own
context,
I could fuck my own head up and I could just not
because
make decisions because it's not aligning with me growing the business. But you need to learn that I've learned that there's so many fucking levels to life that you need to keep well balanced. And I'll make a little point in a minute.
100%. You might have a bit of, it's called cognitive dissonance, when you have like two voices in your head disagreeing with each other. But if you're, again, logical, you weigh it up, you think, if you can think into the future, generally, and you're good at doing that, you will be able to see if it's good for future you. Doesn't matter if you're on holiday having a wank. If future you will thank you for having that break because it increases long-term adherence to your business, that's a yes to that question. So future you will thank you for it, logically. You're making the right decision 100%, right? So decision-making, priorities will dictate the decisions that you're making, right? Whatever priorities you have, that will align with the decision that you're making. If you decide to skip the gym, you prioritize to do something over over going to the gym, 110% every single time. So if a client isn't doing what they need to do, they're just not prioritizing doing what they need to fucking do. That's it, 100%, that's it. 99% of the time, that's it. Okay. Second thing that relates to priorities is goal setting, right? So this is a really important one. So setting goals allows you to then set your priorities with whatever aligns with them. This makes listing your priorities much easier and realistic, okay? Again, an example of what my clients might say, or anyone in general, bro, my priorities are defo health, bro, man. But then you eat shit with 40 ingredients in it and fuck your diet up. Like, if your priorities are health, right, your goals will then align with better health, and you will then make the right decision off the back of those goals that you've set aligned with the priorities, okay? So again, setting goals allows you to then set your priorities. This is good for achievement. This is good for business. But if you want to figure out what goals to set to align with what really matters to you, you would then list what matters to you, bring a wee priority list together off the back of that, and then set goals to align with those priorities that you've set. Hope that makes sense. Does that make sense?
100%, because, yeah, the two ways to look at it, as Kyle just said, is if you have things that don't really involve crazy amounts of purpose and fucking deep emotional fulfillment, and you know you just need to get the fucking tasks done, there will just be tasks and goals you know you need to complete to get to the end destination, fucking regardless of your priorities. So then the goals need to control what you prioritize to get those goals done. Whereas the purpose-driven stuff, it's all about what you value and then basing the goals off that. So, yeah, it's so important to know there's two ways to go about it for the different areas of your life. People might look at this and go, I don't have a fucking business. What are you talking about? Well, look at it more from an achievement standpoint, like fitness goals. You need to set fitness goals before you know what to prioritize. You can't prioritize, do you know what I mean? So if your goal in the gym is to bench 100 kilos, you need to then prioritize heavy sets of fucking bench on a weekly. So yeah, the angle you're going from depends on the area of your life that you're kind of targeting. So
and then prioritize your sleep, and then prioritize your diet, and then prioritize your routine, and then prioritize your obviously sleep with your sleep wake cycle. So it's like, again, it's like all these things. If you start to set priorities around good shit, your health, things in the gym, achievement, you're gonna then start, your behavior will then show that your priorities and your standards are high. Okay,
is it the triangle as well? The triangle, is it kind of like you could put it into a revolving kind of...
The triangle that we went through on episode 17 with Gio, go back and watch that. Yeah, that's just the loop that you're in.
No, but like, can that be applied to this? So like, for the purpose-driven stuff, your priorities, set them, tailors down, goes down towards your goals, and then those goals like lead to the decisions you then need to make to fulfill.
It's more of a square.
Priorities.
It's more of a square because it's like it would go from priority. If we're doing the what means the most to you, your purpose priorities. It would be priorities. You set the goals off the back of that. You then make the right decision based on the goals and the priorities, and then you then are successful. And then that success reaffirms the priorities that you've got. The priorities reaffirm the goals. You do the right decisions to achieve the goals, and then you get success, and then it goes in that kind of loop.
To take a good note from this as well, it's all about fucking patterns, man. It's all about patterns and loops. What patterns and loops can you fit into your daily or weekly life to build the consistency and then the results? All these successful people, you ask, oh, what are you up to today? It's the same shit they done yesterday. It's the same shit they done last week. You'll see all these fucking multi-millionaires are very consistent and quite like mundane in the tasks that they complete, because that's what the tasks you need to complete are as a high-figure, 7-figure business owner, or even like a 5-6-figure. There's tasks that you will be bored at your tits doing. You just need to fucking do it. People always ask me like, oh, what are you up to this weekend or this week? Fucking clients, mate. I'm building a business for the long term. I'm trying to build a team. I can't be doing all these sporadic fucking things. Every Saturday, back-to-back clients at the Doghouse fucking pack performance. Sunday, back-to-back clients. I'm doing that for the next 2-3 years because I'm building for the long term. Do you know what I'm saying? So there's definitely good perspective to take from that as well. For sure.
100%. So standards, okay. So we spoke about priorities. That will dictate the decisions that you're making. If we do go over it, it's fine. Because I don't want to rush this call because it's very valuable. So talking about priorities tend to dictate your decision making. Also the goals that you're setting, right? And there's 2 different ways to do that. We dug into that. Standards, right? So your standards are going to be based on your self-perception, right? So for example, someone with a negative self-perception, right? Someone with low standards, they're going to have a lack of self-respect. Future you will think you're a fucking dickhead, okay? You'll often get waves of guilt and shame, and you're probably someone who is more unconscious. So when you talk about conscious and unconscious, someone that doesn't really consciously think about what they want, what's better for them, and then make decisions based on that conscious voice. They generally just float through life. They're quite automatic. And at the end of their life, they'll probably look back and think, fuck, I could have done this, this, and this, and I just didn't do it. And that's because their standards were set too low, their self-perception was negative, it didn't actually serve them. And again, if you snooze in the morning, it's a lack of self-respect. If you skip the gym, it's a lack of self-respect. If you eat shite food too much in the day, too much in the week, it's a lack of self-respect. If you even treat other people like shit, still a lack of self-respect. However you act is all based on your self-perception. If you feel really good about yourself, you're going to treat other people really well. If you feel really confident, you're going to give other people confidence. If you love yourself, you're going to love other people, right? If you respect yourself, you're going to respect other people. That's how it works. Life is a mirror, not a window. So however someone acts, however you act, it's a reflection on how you feel, what your perception of yourself is. So remember that if anyone speaks shit to you or anyone makes you feel bad, it's their problem. Okay, it's a reflection on how they are. And however you're acting right now, if you do a little bit of reflection right now, that's a reflection on your self-perception, how you perceive yourself. And if you've got a negative self-perception, your standards are going to be low. And guess what? Your life isn't going to be amazing. You're probably not going to love and be grateful for your life every single day. Let's talk about the positive self-perception. You got anything else to add to that?
Well, obviously, we talk about the word respect a lot, and like people say, like, how can I respect myself, or what the fuck does respecting yourself mean? If you look at the meaning of respect, a feeling of deep admiration for someone or something elicited by their abilities, qualities, or achievements. So if you reverse engineer that, if you set the right qualities and achievements that you want to set out and do, and obviously look at the abilities you need to achieve those things.
Align the priorities with them.
If you align your priorities with them, you can then start to act as someone that you do respect. But right now, you're not acting as someone that you respect, because you're giving into those little emotional urges, the little impulsive fucking thought, emotional impulses that you can't control right now. How can you respect yourself? So set those goals, set those priorities, and start to align your actions with them, your decisions, and that is where the respect will come from. If you're sitting right now and you're like, nah, like I look around, my life's not that fucking good, in comparison to where I want it to be, like start to just give yourself 2 months, give yourself a month, just to build that evidence for yourself, and then the respect will come. You can't just instantly respect some cunt that hasn't earned it. You need to earn it for yourself first, and then move forward with the evidence that you've built up over the last month or two. So the point is, give yourself time to build up that respect for yourself so that it is there, the evidence is there to say, yeah, I'm doing the things that I said I would. I now do respect myself, and then you will carry that respect with every decision you make in the future.
100%, but it's like priorities, standards, all this sounds good, 100%. If you align your priorities and your goals, you get success, whatever, right? What's in between this is you navigating what your priorities are, you navigating what decisions to make, what goals to set, and then you deal with actually taking action and doing the right thing and making the right decision. Your unconscious might start to fuck you, you might have barriers, you might have self-sabotage, fear of failure, fear of success, procrastination, all these things might kick in. And that's why you get a coach. That's why I do deep work with my clients, because this is real life. These are real life things that if you do, you will succeed. You will win the game of life. That's why this call is called this. But winning the game of life is doing all of these things. And doing all of these things isn't as easy as us just saying this. It's you on a daily basis battling with your unconscious, retraining your unconscious mind, like changing your environment, like fighting against some parts of your environment that are tried to fuck you. All of these things aren't as easy as it sounds. And that's why investing in a coach, and again, I'm not just plugging my coach in here, but I am plugging my coach in here. Getting a coach, investing in a coach, drop the ego, make the fucking investment, because if you want to make these changes and win the game of life, coaching is a big part of that. If you've not got the tools right now, if you're not as far ahead as you want to get right now, get the wisdom from a coach, apply that wisdom, dig into yourself. Like the coach will ask you, I'll ask you questions that you will not ask yourself. And that's that deep work, that's where the progress happens. That's when you start winning the game of life. So a positive self-perception, right? Someone that respects himself. Future you loves you. Future you looks back and goes, that guy's a fucking legend, right? He's doing what I want him to do. I love him. You're full of love, gratitude, and excitement for the future, right? So see if you're someone that's truly doing what they should do, someone that's got high standards. There's no reason for you to have fear and doubt of the future. There's no reason for you to have any uncertainty about tomorrow or next week. Because if you're doing what you know you should, you'll be full of love, gratitude, and excitement for the future. You'll be like, oh my God, this is my reality. Fucking hell. I've got this, and this to look forward to. Yes, you've got a lot of responsibility if you do get to the next level, but guess what? You'll get past it. You'll win it again. You'll win the game of life again as long as you're doing these things. So if you've got a positive self-perception, if you've got respect, future you loves you for the decisions you're making, you're going to feel like you're full of love, gratitude, and excitement for the future. There's going to be no fear and doubt. You're also going to be someone who is conscious and in control. And when we think about that, it's like, give you an example that you can probably relate to. You go into the kitchen, you go to eat a little bit of shit, and there's a voice in your head that goes, nah, I probably shouldn't eat that, right? That's your conscious voice kicking in. Most people don't listen to that conscious voice. If you're someone who is conscious and in control, that voice will kick in and you'll listen to that voice and not eat the shit. That's just the easiest example I could give you right now to think about. If you're conscious and in control, your standards are going to be high. You're going to be behaving in a way that your standards, you could look at someone's behavior and think, right, okay, his standards are definitely high. And you're going to be aligning with the priorities that align with your goals, okay? So, like I just said, your standards will dictate your behavior. So if you look back at your behavior in the last week, 2 weeks, month, 6 months, right? Your behavior should directly show the level of standards that you're setting, right? So if you're up every morning ticking the boxes, if you're being disciplined, if you're locking into the good habits, that behavior that you're carrying out, that shows that you have high standards, right? So if you look back right now, what's your behavior been like today so far? What's your behavior like been this week? What about this month? What about the last few months, right? Have you been setting standards high? The easiest way to find that out is looking at your behavior. So let's give you an example of someone who has negative behavior. Okay, and an easy example to think about. So the fanny that gets fucked out their face every single weekend, no structure to their life during the week, no real goals in their life to set. They're escaping reality every week. So they go out on a Friday, get absolutely fucked on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They're hanging Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then it's a loop when the Friday comes again. Okay, that's someone with low standards. It's a very easy person in society today to point at, right? It's very easy to understand how that person has low standards due to the behavior that they are carrying out. Someone with high standards, okay, so someone with a positive behavior, so someone with discipline, someone who can say no and behaves in a way that not only serves them now, but future them too. They put future them in a better position, okay, for example, prepping, okay, so prepping your food, right? So instead of eating the shite for convenience, you've prepped food, right? So you're thinking ahead. You're organising your week. You've got your day planned out. You're setting intentions, right? This is the kind of behaviour of someone with high standards, someone that doesn't want to waste time, someone that wants to get further ahead in life, someone that wants to win the game of life. That is the behaviour of someone like that. So again, ask yourself right now, you're by the fact you're watching this podcast or listening to this podcast, you're probably closer to that second example, right? But we're not robots, okay? We're all people that can do better. You're listening to this podcast because you want to do better. You are not your ideal version of yourself, because as you become that person changes and gets better, and you're always chasing that ideal version of yourself. So that's why, again, taking this on, so this full podcast, take it on as an opportunity to grow, right? Don't have your ego might kick in and go, oh, my standards are high enough, my priorities are all in line, right? But at least take this as an opportunity to self-examine and see how much of what we're saying is justified. How much of this can you apply to yourself and grow from? That's why these podcasts are made, so that you can do that, okay? So again, another thing to reinforce, you also have the choice. Like, you are in the fucking position of power to set the standards higher. So last night when I done this call with my clients, this morning I had 10 boys before I was awake sending in pictures at 6 a.m. of them up an hour earlier, right? So the challenge that we set was called the Golden Hour Challenge, stole from another coach, shout out Ben Heron. But we done that to raise the standards the next day. So off the back of the call last night, there was 10 boys, without me even doing it to get them in and encourage them, they were sending in pictures of them up at 6 a.m. As soon as they soaked in that call last night, they chose the next day, because they have the choice, they chose to raise the standards as soon as they woke up the next day. So you have the choice. If you think about it deeply, you might think, oh, I'm stuck and da-da-da, whatever. You've got the fucking choice.
And if you actually do see this or listen to this and go, yeah, my standards are high, well, look at your fucking life and you'll be able to quickly see if your standards are really high. And I was going to ask you, Kyle, just as a viewer, what are some of the standards that you set for yourself in what areas of your life? Because I think a lot of people would maybe watch this and listen to this and go, right, cool, I want to have high standards, but how do I set the high standards? Like, what do I think about in my life to set the high standards about? Like, how do I split my life up in ways that I can set high standards? Like, where I see it, before Kyle answers, is you want to have high standards for different areas of your life. So take, for example, your relationships. You want to make sure that the standards of those relationships are kept. Standards I keep in my relationships is productive conversation, trust, fucking loyalty, transparency. All these standards are kept between each and individual relationship. And if any of them are not there, I will not have a relationship with that person. Or those things will be raised, those concerns will be raised. And if they can't be fucking sorted and moved on with, that cunt will be completely removed from my life, because you need to, above everything else, keep your fucking standards. When you start to drop your standards, you're starting to almost give pieces of yourself to other people, and the momentum that'll kill for long term is fucking crazy. It's actually mental. So standards in every part of your life, relationships, your health, your wealth. Even if you think about your financial position, like, do you have high standards? Right, cool. I'm not going to spend £700 on a fucking YSL top and it's half my fucking monthly wage. I'm going to put that into, invest that or save that for X. Do you know what I mean? So what do you think?
What was the question again?
What are some standards that you keep for yourself, and how do you compartmentalize your standards across the board of your life?
So standards that I set for myself, again, it's like, I just look at my behaviour and think, like, how does the ideal version of myself act? How does he behave? That is how I act, and that's how I behave, and that dictates the standards that I've got. So right now, rather than me, again, I can speak about my standards, but it's like, I'll never skip the gym. I train 7 days a week, right? And it's like, my workouts are planned around being able to recover. I'm not just a pure mad cunt that trains 7 days a week, right? But I'll never miss a workout. I'll prioritize protein with every single meal. I'll prioritize 7 hours sleep every single night. Like, they're the kind of standards that I just set as non-negotiables. And as we said at the start, if you prioritize your health and you set your standards and your goals aligned with them, that will all trickle into other areas of your business, like your relationships, how you communicate, how you look, how you dress, everything, 100%. So, but the best way for you right now listening to find out what your priorities are and what standards you should be setting, etc. So here's a little exercise, okay? So I'm going to pop this up on the screen. We don't usually do this, but we're going to pop this up on the screen. This is a message that I sent to my clients. A few questions, okay? So rate how high your standards are right now from 1 to 5. Where could, and you're filling this in as you right now. This is you right now filling this in. Where could they be higher, right? Where are your standards high? So give yourself a little positive. Think about where your standards are actually kept quite high. Where are you behaving well, right? List your priorities from 3 to 5. So just 3 to 5 priorities. What are your top priorities? Also, again, which one of those priorities align with your ideal self? Once you've wrote that down, now I want you to think about being the ideal version of yourself. So you've outlined the ideal version of yourself, because earlier in the call we've asked yourself those questions. So you should have the ideal version of yourself written out. You should know who that person is, how they act, what they prioritize, etc. Right? So now, as the ideal version of yourself, list your priorities, 3 to 5 priorities. List 3 to 5 priorities, right? And this last question is so fucking powerful, right? Where did you increase your standards and what changed? Right? So because you're not your ideal version of yourself right now, but if you put yourself in that person's shoes and you look at your own priorities right now, your own standards right now, ask yourself the question, as your ideal version of yourself, where did you increase your standards and what changed? The answer to that question will lie what you need to do going forward. That will give you the fucking blueprint of what you need to do going forward. So if you can speak as your ideal version of yourself, you can say what you've changed to get better from where you are now. You've just literally told yourself what you need to fucking change. It's such a powerful question to ask. So that's a wee exercise. I popped it up on the screen there a few minutes ago.
Where are your standards high? So if people were to wonder what the fuck you're talking about.
So it's like, in life right now, what areas are you behaving in that is serving you? So like, are you sticking to the gym consistently? Yep. So your standards are high with the gym. Are you eating good food all the time? Yep. So your standards are high with the gym. So just look at your behavior.
Can you break that down even more? Like, because the gym's quite a general fucking point. It's like, my standards are high. I'm consistent with actually going to the gym. My standards are high. I gym every time, but I still snack. My standards are quite low with my diet.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, where did my standards changed, and what changed? Or what was it? What was the last question?
The question was like, where did your standards, let me get back to it. So where did you increase your standards and what changed?
So like, for example, the person that gyms consistently as fuck but eats too much shite, their standards of diet could change, and then what changed? Well, I can see my cock when I'm pissing now, and I've got less fat on my belly.
Yeah, or more so, yeah, and more so if you're the ideal version of yourself. So imagine, we'll give you an example then, just to break it down and make it easier. You right now, you're slacking with diet, right? You're eating a bit of shit food, but your standards are high, 100% with the gym. You're training hard, you're training progressively, right? So if you're going into your ideal version of yourself, that person, I assume, doesn't eat shit, is disciplined with the diet, does behave in a way that future then thanks them for, right? So did you increase your standards? I increased, if you're thinking about future you, talking to you now, I increased my standards with diet, right? What changed? I started to eat high protein foods. I stopped snacking on sugar. I stopped eating for pleasure. I started eating for purpose. These are the kind of things that changed, and that's where the standards were increased. Does that make more sense?
Yeah.
So last couple of things here, right? So again, how sick, think about it. How sick if right now this shit changes? How sick if right now you just increase your standards, you get the goals and the priorities lined out, you start making the right decisions, success will happen. You will win the fucking game of life, 100%. This is one of the calls that I've done. This is part of the formula to win the game of life. So how sick right now if it changes? It's fucking sick. If this shit changes, who do you become? Visualize it right now. Even pause the podcast, let it keep running, whatever. Close your eyes. Visualize who you become. Who is that version of yourself that you become when the standards are increased, when the priorities are aligning with your goals, or your goals are aligning with your priorities? Who do you become? Think about it. Visualize it. Really think about it. Because visualizing, that will change your state. It'll make you feel excited and buzzing about the fucking fact that you're that person if it changes, etc. And then that will change your behavior to then reaffirm the thoughts and the focus of thinking about that version of yourself. And then that'll make you feel good again. And then you're going to go in this positive loop like we spoke about last week on the podcast with Gio. It's fucking sick. So, but making the change stick, right? So it's good to think about making a change. Imagine you made the change. Amazing. Good. Perfect. So you've done that yourself without a coach. Amazing. Or you've invested in a coach. You've done it with a coach and you've made the change. How do we make this change stick, right? So regular reflection. So on a daily basis, you need to reflect. You need to be like, okay, where are my standards high today? Did I align with my priorities? Did my goals align with my priorities? Did my priorities align with my goals? Did I behave in a way that would reflect high standards? Do my results today show that I have high standards? These kind of questions, okay? The most important question you can ask yourself at the end of the day, would future me thank me for today? Simple question, but it really makes you think. Would future me thank me for doing that thing today, doing this, doing that? And it gets you to reflect. Okay, so regular reflection, if we're trying to make this stick, we need to do that. We need to be aware. Accountability. Okay, so for all my clients in the call last night, I am their accountability. They also have friends they can hold themselves accountable to, but they're paying for a coach to hold them accountable. That's what they pay for. That's one of the big things they pay for when they get a coach. Okay, so to help them make it stick, I will keep them accountable. The message that I popped up on screen, they've all put an answer to that. I've put that onto their Google Sheets, and that's something that we can look at and reflect on when we jump on one-to-one calls. Being honest as well. So you need to be honest with yourself. Is that if you're reflecting, right, and you're being kept accountable, be honest. Because you could fucking lie to yourself easily. This shit doesn't need to stick. You can lie and say it did stick, but guess what? Your results are going to show that. Your outcomes in life are going to show that. If you get really high standards and you tell everyone this, but you're fucking not progressing, you're not making any more money, you're not helping anyone, you're not doing any better yourself, you're not being honest. You're fucking lying to yourself. Also, remind yourself of why. Why are you doing this? Like, why do you want to become better? All of my clients, they're all, when we jump on the initial call, we dig into why. We dig into their purpose. We dig into things that allow them to keep doing the thing when they don't want to do the thing. And also, last thing here, lock in good habits. So you might not know what good habits are right now, but again, when I have a conversation with my clients initially, we think about their life right now. We think about the ideal version of themselves. We then think about habits that would assist them in getting to that place that they want to get to. And then we lock in those good habits. So as long as you're locking in good habits, you're reflecting regularly, you're kept accountable, you're being honest with yourself. And when you don't want to do it, you remind yourself of why you're doing it. I guarantee you're going to make this change stick.
And the crazy fucking part about this is the crazy part about this is most of the things that are stopping you from achieving these goals, setting these standards, setting these priorities, is you. The only real thing that is getting in the way is you and your mind. As soon as you start to master your mind, your impulse emotion, your impulse thoughts, you can then start to steer those thoughts towards the thoughts you need to think to act the way you want to act. The most of the barriers in your life is coming from yourself. So that is why this podcast and what we're trying to preach is what we're doing right now with ourselves, with our own life, trying to take full control over our minds, impulse control, and really start to take control of the fucking direction of our lives. And that's why this podcast, for a lot of people, is so fucking powerful, because as Kyle said at the start, people don't really get these conversations to let themselves think and give themselves the time to think. So yeah, the craziest part about all of this is the main thing that is stopping you from setting the standards, the priorities, and achieving the goals is yourself. So get in alignment with what you believe in and start to act within those beliefs, and shit will start to happen. And it's the initial discomfort, negative stress that takes over and goes, and subconsciously, is my life that uncomfortable and shit to really go through this invisible fucking discomfort? It's not even there. It's what you're making up in your head. I learned from a mentor a few years ago now something called idiotic editing, and it's basically something that a lot of people do. I do it. Everyone does it. Say you've got an event coming up or something coming up, right? You start to premeditate and basically jump to different conclusions and outcomes, negative outcomes that will happen when you go and do that thing. For example, say we've got a podcast coming on and we've got a big guest on or whatever, for example. There could be little outcomes in my head starting to play out. Oh, what if this doesn't happen? What if that doesn't happen? All of that is completely made up in your fucking mind. And it comes from the survival instinct, fight or flight, emotional response to avoid stress. You think about a stressor, your brain wants to avoid that stress. So what does it start to do? It starts to tell you negative outcomes, starts to try to make you avoid the stress of what you're going to do. So you need to understand that most of the stress and anxiety and nervousness around the things that you want to do is completely made up in your own fucking mind. It's the fear, false evidence appearing real. None of it is actually real. Most of it is just completely made up by the emotional instinct and the emotional reaction in your head to avoid discomfort, avoid stress. So give yourself the awareness to combat that and know that logically that stress is just an emotional response that you don't need to listen to. Logically get it fucking done. Stop being a fucking pussy. Fast forward 10 years, what, you're going to thank yourself for being an emotional fucking controlled pussy? I don't think so.